Hi everyone. My name's Andrew Fitzpatrick. Welcome back to the Mamas Podcast. Mamas Allied Make America Strong and/or Parents Allied Make America Strong. We have our follow-up guest, Anneliese Vance from Never Miss a Moment Consulting. Thank you so much for coming on again today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I would like to know, because now that I understand your business better, Never Miss a Moment, and what the focus is, how do you find the balance? How do you create the balance in your own family as a mom? Like, how do you not miss your own moments and still help fathers and other families not miss their moments? You know what I mean? Like, as a family-owned
Yeah, I
business.
hear you. And I'll tell you, I feel like the best answer to this question, it's kind of like the landscaper that doesn't, have his own grass cut all the time. I'm not perfect at this. I'm a type A, I am a doer. I literally sometimes have to tell myself, okay, sitting with your daughter and watching this Play-Doh video, because that's how she's learning colors and things. Right now is she likes watching these Play-Doh videos and and she's quality time, so she wants to do it together. And literally like 1 to 1:30 is sacred time. That is my daughter's quality time. I put Quinn down early enough to get that time with her. Or I mean, Quinn, since he just turned 2, he's older. Like today, he's like, Mommy, I want to play basketball. Like I literally have to, like, Annalise, like, go be present. And we talked about this a little bit, I think, on the last podcast, but um due to some things I went through, I'm still learning how to play.
Yeah.
It's something that my husband has taught me, and I've confided in him, like, hey, this is challenging for me because I didn't get to be a kid
Yep.
growing up through fault of nobody. Well, one person, but not my parents. And so it's a skill that I'm learning. And I think I was telling you right before the podcast, like, watching my daughter imagine, or watching them play, or even like sometimes watching like some of those YouTube videos where they play with like I'll watch the show Bluey and watch the like games they come up with, and I'm like, oh, like that's really creative. Like I've literally got to train my brain. So all that to say is, I, like everything else in my life at this point, for me, like I'm scheduling it. Like Mondays and Tuesdays, like, are my mom time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I still can find myself like sneaking into trying to do work during those times if like they're watching an educational video or something. And my daughter keeps me very honest. Mommy, can you put your phone down? Like ever since they learned to talk, and I'm like, ooh, self-check. But we schedule like, I mean, Sunday mornings obviously is church family time. We schedule time with just Dustin and the kids on Wednesday and Thursday mornings that are my office hours. We schedule family like times we're going to go out. Like we know it's going to happen ahead of time. And during that time, like we try to be, and again, I'm not perfect. We try to be very present during that. And then during work, like I try to get work done. Um, and it's very dynamic and always fluid, right? Like yesterday, Quinn, who was supposed to be down by 1, did not go to sleep till 1:50 when I was about to be on a meeting at 2. Um, you know, Kids will wake up early, and you just got to kind of roll with it.
Yep.
But and I mean, you understand, but
I do.
I'm trying to be more and more intentional with, not that you can create a moment, but I think you can create opportunities for moments to happen. And I'm also very intentional with my rest time. Dustin's been amazing at giving me that. I give that to him as an introvert. I'm not an introvert, I'm just a mom. And sometimes I just reach those times where like, I'm done. So he'll take them. Hey, like, do you want me to take them out? Do you want me to take one of them to the store? Do you want to go like take a bath? Do you want to just go take a nap? And that helps me be, I mean, I think one of the biggest enemies to creating moments is fatigue. Um,
Absolutely. Yep.
and
Absolutely.
just not delegating certain things. And so one of my victories is being able to receive that help and like, yes, actually I would like that. And then I can come back. Like I went and took a bath, and then I heard it was time for Quinn's bedtime, and I wanted to go do story time with him, where when I was like exhausted and just like tapped, I was like, you can do it, but it's not from a lack of desire. Sometimes I don't know who said it, but fatigue makes cowards of us all. It's a very, very true quote.
I
So
think, I think, yeah, I think parenting and entrepreneurship, when we're doing both, especially, and who isn't when we get right down to brass tacks, but when we're making that our life, um, we can liken it a bit to a boat being on a river. We don't get to control all the dynamics of the river, but we sure do get to captain the boat, and it's all in how we captain that boat, aka ourselves, right? Um, and whether we got a great partner, do we have a great paddle partner on that boat helping us out? Which sounds like, it sounds like you do. And I like what you're saying here, but I'm gonna add a layer to something, because you did the same thing that I used to always do, and that I see so many parents do, and just a huge reason why I started the podcast. We're never just a mom, and we're never just a parent. We're never just a dad.
right.
The role we have is so important. And what I find happening is that we dismiss it in our culture. Our mainstream culture has kind of taught us to like be dismissive of the power of that role, and how much integrity and heart and creativity and education and just flat out courage and effort it takes. It doesn't mean that we don't love our children. I'm just saying, like, it's been, for me, the toughest leadership role I'll ever have the privilege of walking. And so I just want to put that out there, like, every mom gets tired, every father
Yeah.
gets tired, and that figuring out how to do that self-care so that we can show up best for ourselves and our family is like crucial. And
Yeah.
so it's beautiful that you have a partner that supports that, and that you're able, to
I'm
get
very
that,
blessed.
get that
I
moment to breathe.
I didn't always appreciate it. I've never been more grateful since kid number two came along. And since they're older, they're more dynamic.
Mhm.
They're plotting together, I swear, behind the couch. um, but
That's their
yeah,
job. That's their
yeah.
job.
Which is why I'm so passionate, and I know we'll get into this, but why I'm so passionate about mommy and daddy being home together and parenting
Yeah,
together.
that's you're reading my mind. Next question, leading into the next question, which is like, what inspired you to want to help dads specifically, and help dads never miss a moment?
Yeah, so I mean, I talk a lot about it in my posts on my about section. And if you read, I always, and I'm never apologizing for my story because it's my story, but I
Mhm.
always try to say very honoring and respectful of my father.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, he's part of that baby boomer generation. He's 73. He was born when my Nana was 46. So, it, she was, or in 1946. No, gosh, no, she was 46. Jesus. Sorry. 1950, she was 46. My dad was born. So part of that baby boomer generation. So part of it was what I experienced that was inadvertently not positive, but
Mhm.
came from a good place. And I think, this is probably true of any parent, but we take the good and the bad, right? We keep the good and we're like, how can I improve what wasn't, as helpful? Um, and I think that also happens. We were talking about this before, but what I learned from my mom, my husband would be like, maybe we don't do that. And what he learned from his dad, maybe I'm like, let's, here's my perspective from my side of the family and how we did it.
Mhm.
And partner on that. But um it people ask me this question, and this is like my 12th podcast I've been on, which isn't as many as most people, but it's just funny, like every time I get asked this question, Andrew, the only way I can answer it is God put it in me. Like I don't know that I was inspired by a specific thing. I mean, my life definitely God orchestrated for this to all happen because of just the empathy that I have. I think my personality is just like I see a wrong and I try and right it. It's just like how I'm wired.
Mhm.
Um,
What's the
and
wrong you see in this case? I'm interrupting a little bit. Like, what's
it
the wrong
irks
you're seeing?
it irks my soul how dads are the butt of a joke. I
Tell
mean,
me what
you
you mean by
have
that.
if it's in a movie, if it's on a cartoon, if it's in America, like we watch Bluey and Peppa the Pig because they honor dads. Like it's very hard to find like a good values, kid rated something that like isn't still like it's just the mom's there or the dad's absent or they're painting what they see in society. And one thing I've figured out over being active on LinkedIn for 18 months, there are so many dads that are all about wanting to be about their kids.
Yep,
And I mean, and you've interviewed
some of
dozens of
them.
them. Um, I've met a lot of them through you, and it's just, it's not talked about. They're talked about as like the action hero or something, like maybe like, Liam Neeson in Taken or, Die Hard 4, where he's, saving his daughter, but like they're always some like individualized like Rambo type character, right? Like I don't see a lot of mom and dad like as a united front raising their kids.
Right.
And it bothers me because I've experienced it plenty. I've talked to hundreds of people on LinkedIn that think like we think. And I like to advocate the message because it's not talked about. And especially, from my perspective, like, I mean, besides someone like yourself or Jennifer Geel, like, there's not a lot of females that are advocating for the men as well. There's
I,
plenty of men that are advocating for men. There's plenty of women that are advocating for strong women or women of strength. There's not a lot of crossover.
you're
So,
absolutely spot on that. And it's part of the reason I love what you're doing because what I say, and there's a reason for that. There's an unfortunate reason for that. I think there's a lot of work to tear down family, and there's been a lot of
yes,
work with the feministic movement that was supposedly you're gonna this may fire some of our listeners up, but was supposedly supposed to give women more freedom, more rights, right? But what it really did was tell us that we had to be like a man to be good, and and I disagree with that because, and I'm talking about the really hard feminists. Okay, I'm not talking about the some of the original people. Some of the original people who were feminists was just like give us the equal respect and rights as that of a man. They didn't say we want to be like a man, right?
right.
And so one of the things I tend to say is that like gentlemen tend to be givers while women are nurturers, and we don't actually acknowledge that very much in our society. When
Yeah.
we nurture our family, our children, and our man, there's on nothing that man won't do for us and with us. Really, that's very, very, very giving. But we don't talk about that dynamic and how it grows this beautiful, flower, this beautiful family. We don't talk about that, and we don't talk about it cross genders, just like you're saying. And
Right.
I think it's because men and women both, neither one understand their power well enough um, in their heart of who they are. And people get all off track arguing about the feminine and the masculine energies and how we all have them. Of course, we all have them. Of course, we all do. But if you're born in a feminine body,
Right.
again, probably will fire some people up. But if you're born in a feminine body, you have more feminine energy. If you're born in a masculine body, you usually have more masculine energy. Now,
Right.
note I'm saying usual. And so what that means is that how we come together and talk as human beings and interact is very different. Men and women are very different. I didn't say less than. And this is what people hear when they hear different. They think less than. They automatically go over here and think less than. And I joke with the men in my life that men have all these boxes in their head, and those boxes can't touch, right?
Great book.
Yep. And if you get on a subject that's outside of that box, they don't understand. You've lost them. You got to go back to that box. And the woman's in there going, how do you not see how that connected to this and this and this and this and this? And and I get lighthearted about it and I joke about it, but it's actually a fundamental, crucial reason why I have seen so many men and women actually fight and get in really toxic places with each other because they don't understand that how they communicate and how they think is actually very different. We're very different beings.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that the feminine maligns, the masculine and vice versa. And so I think it's so wonderful that like you're going, hey, dads are needed in this sphere with what you're doing with your business.
Sure.
I also think I think in America we need a lot more smaller family-owned businesses in the first place.
Agreed.
So like all these things line up. And I can tell that in some ways that you feel that this is very important. And I guess to kind of anchor it, kind of return to our questions, like how important do you think the father's involvement is in child rearing? Because obviously the whole point here is like, how do we help dads be able to have not miss their moments? So help me understand the importance of that and where you're coming from with that.
Andrew, it's critical. I mean, it's literally like life or death of the family, in my opinion. And, you know, all the respect in the world to, single moms, single dads that don't have another option and, for standing strong for their kids. And, I have followers that are both. That's another interesting cross niche that's happened because they don't have another like place to go. So they're like, oh, this is like helpful information. But in an ideal world, like you were talking about, I mean, men and women are wired and have giftings and strengths in certain areas. We've talked a lot about, female intuition. Um, or being able, like, not even the boxes, but like just as a female, like a thing will happen and my husband will be like, I just don't understand why that happened. And I'll be like, I can point to the exact moment that triggered it happening. But he can do the same for me when I'm, in a place of emotion and he grounds me. Um, and, I'll just, we were talking a little bit about it earlier, but I grew up in a dichotomy where there were the days that my dad traveled and then there were the days that my dad was home. And we still have that dichotomy very slightly in our house for 2 days a week. And Mondays and Tuesdays are just diametrically opposed different to how Wednesday through Saturday are. Wednesday through Saturday, there's a peace, there's a calm, there's just a rightness to our house. And Monday and Tuesday is chaos and hurry and until Dustin gets home and then it's peace again. It's like, oh, daddy's home. And it's like, everything's right. And I know that I'm not the only, couple in America, family owned business in America that goes through that dynamic. I might be a little bit more attuned to it because it's the mission of our business. But back to the question, Dustin's just better at stepping back, being logical, being rational, setting a vision for our family. Like there are things that guys are just wired to do. To know, like, no, honey, like, I mean, I think we may have talked about this a little bit on the first podcast that we did together, but Quinn is never going to learn how to treat a lady until he sees Dustin treat me a certain way. Lily is never going to see, how her future husband should be until she sees like daddy taking her out on dates or, just spending that special time with him. But I also need him because he can be firmer and, she is a very type A driven, I can do it myself personality. And sometimes I'm like, I gotta tag you in. Like, I need you, here because I'm too emotional. I'm too close to it. Or like we were talking about, like it triggers things that are still deep in me that I am still working through. and she knows how to find them. It's very, very true what you were saying earlier. So, Quinn, there are moments when he needs tough love, and that's not how I'm wired, right? I'm wired to give him a hug. It's gonna be okay. Like, he's my little boy. And Dustin's like, no, like this is a moment where he needs, this is a man raising moment. Um, and so there's certain roles that only guys were created to fulfill. And there's roles I was created to fulfill as well. Um, and we're not perfect at it. And the dynamics of how we were both raised definitely get in the way, but we try to stay in our own lane and compliment. And as you've talked about with us, like have a united front, and they'll try and play mommy off of daddy. Like, no, go talk to your dad. Like, I know what he told you. Mommy agrees with daddy. But yeah, there's giftings that we have and can lean into. Just yes, personality wise, but I definitely feel like gender plays a role in it. And I always joke, people have accused me of being stuck in the 1950s. And you know what, Andrea? We're a lot happier back then. Like, I think we should go back there sometimes. I think a lot of just what stresses people out is because we left that. So I'm fine with going back to some of that. It doesn't bother me that people say that.
Right. No, I hear you. Well, and I wouldn't say it kind of makes me smile to hear you say that. I'm sure people have their opinions. I think the challenge I'm going to tackle a couple layers of what you said.
Yeah.
Bear with me. I think people have a real hot button these days because they push the DEI and the gender issues so hard in our mainstream society and right into our politics and into our schools, right? Into the public school systems and all that jazz. I apologize for the background noise, shared space here.
Okay.
And what happens is that it eliminates people's ability to communicate eloquently across lines of difference. That's what I call it. Even a man and a woman in a same conversation, they're going to be communicating, no matter how well aligned they are, they're going to be communicating across lines of difference.
Yeah.
Okay? Even two sisters who are raised in the same family, they're going to have different personalities communicating across lines of difference, right? Exactly. Yeah. So the larger and tighter point I'm making all at once here is just that when people say things like, "Oh, you want the 1950s back," they're not understanding the import of the value structure that you're presenting, right? Because you're not nowhere in here do I hear you saying, "Oh, well, gays are wrong," or I wouldn't hire a lesbian. Like, you're not talking that way. You're talking about the heart of family and what matters to you as a mother and a businesswoman for your family and about family values. And I want to speak into this just a moment because I think it's so highly misunderstood. And I'll bring in some of my cultural background a little bit. We go, oh, they have it all over the news and they push this stuff and they'll say we have this, and this many genders now, gender identifiers. Well, number one, we don't assign gender. God does that. We identify gender. So that argument is just absolutely moot. Secondary, in my ancient cultures, indigenous cultures, we identified anywhere from 8 to 12 or more different gender identifiers in our cultural groups historically, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Okay, this is not a new thing. And by the way, it wasn't a malign thing in our culture. Most people were sort of heterosexual, but the ones that weren't, okay, they lived their lives. They weren't made fun of. They weren't made wrong. It was just understood in our culture. They chose something different. So what I'm saying is that there is an agenda that pushes those hot buttons. And what happens then is that the challenges we already have to communicate across those lines of difference and build those family values that you're talking about, that I think are just so solid. Instead, people are pushed toward arguing with each other and misunderstanding and fighting for something that isn't valuable. And it's part of the reason I love having you on the podcast. I love what you're doing with Never Miss a Moment, because you're working to build strong family centers, family-centric movements. families are like a little microcosm of community, which is where I hail from originally. Indigeneity is all about a healthy, functioning community. You're talking about a little tiny community. Your family's a little tiny community. And you're saying,
Right.
well, when one of our main community leaders, my husband, Dustin, the father, isn't home, our house gets topsy-turvy because he's one of the leaders in the household.
Yeah.
And he holds the frame for you guys, right?
Yeah.
He
Yes,
holds
that's a great way to put it.
he holds the frame so that you guys can be safe in your emotions, literally be safe in your emotions. And I have to say, like, kudos to you because that's huge in a household. That's such a huge win. And it kind of leads me to the next set of
Can I
things.
add a point, Andrea?
Sure, sure, absolutely.
I love that you just said the frame, but I think what it also does and what just came to me is it allows me to just be naturally me
Yeah, yep.
instead of having to take on other roles that are essential. They're just not natural to me.
Mhm.
And my mom's a digestive health specialist. I still need to connect you guys, and you guys would have some very interesting conversations. But she talks to me all the time about my adrenals,
Yep.
how it affects everything and down to my stomach lining. And she can tell when my stomach lining's off when I've been off out or under stress. Um, and she helps me, get that back centered. But that only happens when I'm trying to be something I'm not. Um,
Yes.
that
And
that stresses me out.
I,
Because it's not how I'm naturally wired.
mhm.
So, and I don't feel that stress. Is there natural stress of just being a mom or having a 2 and an almost 4-year old and a mini me of myself? Absolutely. It's just amplified when Dustin's gone.
Mhm.
So,
I love that you're bringing up that point, and I'll if take it apart a little bit more. I love that you're citing. I can hold this, but it isn't my natural inclination. I
yeah.
love that, and I'll bring an element in for that. So I've experienced both single parenthood and non-single parenthood. So I'm going to bring that nuance in, and I've experienced non-single parenthood healthily and very unhealthily. Okay,
Okay.
not necessarily in those orders. Um, so to bring a point home that you're sharing here is that I am a mom who was able to do single parenthood and pull that off and keep my children healthy. But the toll it took on me to try to fill both roles, not just energetically, because it really ought to be two to create it really ought to be two, right? Not just because of that, but because I had to set many aspects of my feminine self aside to bring that full driving force of energy and keep the frame safe for my family. I had to bring that to bear in a way that I didn't have to when I had a safe when I have a safe partner, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and the same thing happens, by the way, for women who are in unsafe homes or toxic relationships. They too have to start figuring out how to build a masculine frame. So all of the people who go, oh well, you're 1950s or whatever they want to say. Actually, there's this thing that happens between the dynamic of a family where the man holds the frame, like I said, he gives, and the woman nurtures what's in that frame. It propels the family much further, both professionally and personally, because of that. And what I'm trying to take apart here is that when a woman has that frame, a mother has that frame, she can be a stronger, more intuitive mother, and a
Yes.
mother who is more in tune with her intuition, her feelings,
Yeah.
will be able to be a much stronger mother. Without that frame, she has to think in two different worlds, and one of them doesn't come as easy for her. So then
Yeah.
she has to think in that two. You hear what I'm saying? Those
Yeah.
two different ways. And I think your point here is just so solid because it's not something that's always acknowledged. And people want to say, well, I'm a single, blah, blah, blah. And I do it just fine. Well, nobody said you couldn't do it. Okay. No one's saying you can't do it. But it is
But I think
easier.
if given choice, they wouldn't.
Yeah, it's the same. I'm given the choice of a healthy partner
Yep.
and single, there's no
And
contest.
that's why I have so much respect because, you know, they're not wired to do it. They figure out how to do it and they do that for their children, which is amazing. But women, I mean, in the Bible, like Eve was created to be a helpmeet and she was created to complete Adam. So if there's nothing there to complete, then what are you starting with? And it's just it's chaos. I feel just like I said, a calmer, peaceful version of myself. I can actually be who I was created to be and complete, what Dustin is framing,
Mhm.
using your analogy, um, versus just starting with like no foundation.
Right.
Um, so
I see it in both. I've seen it. I see it everywhere in both boys and girls. You can tell in a home which parent was able to show up and which parent wasn't by how those children behave. You really, really can. Um, and so leading into that next question a little bit, um, how important do you think it is for small businesses, family businesses, businesses owned by fathers? How important do you think it is for them to hire someone like you to help them out so that they don't miss those moments? I mean, we've kind of touched the edge of that, but like,
I I think it's essential. What I always say is most people that are in the dynamic of who we help. So family owned, dad owned businesses, B2C, service based businesses. They started that company because they had a skill and it wasn't marketing. Generally, I mean, there are definitely like people or men that do have that skill, and I won't go dropping a bunch of names because I'll run out of time. But you know who you are because I comment on your stuff all the time if you're listening to this. So, um, but mostly like, I mean, a locksmith or a jeweler, they want to do their skill, they want to do their craft, they want to do what their gifting is and what God put in them to do, not marketing and
yep,
or advertising. And it's so mentally consuming, um, that they can't do one well if they're trying to do the other. But what I always say is there's only one role that only they can be, and that's dad to their children and husband to their wife. They can outsource everything else. They cannot, nor they should not outsource that.
right.
Um, and that's what I try to take off of their shoulders. That's what, Megan Tribble, who I know that takes off of parents' shoulders. And it's really cool. We've started trying to do some collaboration because we do very opposite things of each other that are very completing,
Yep,
and have the same mission to help parents. So I just want to shout
yep.
her out here.
Oh, she's
Um,
amazing. You both are.
she is. Yeah, we've had a virtual coffee. So, but yeah, only they can be dad to their kids. Like anyone else can do pretty much anything else in their business except the skill that they offer. But even that, they can have an apprentice. But, they married their wife, they had their kids. Like that, in my opinion, should be priority. Now, granted, I know that they're doing what they're doing for their kids and for their wife. But doing the marketing, it's not it's essential to bring in leads to do the work, but it's not something that they have to nor should do. And most successful businesses that I've seen that have been able to scale are outsourcing different elements of their business. And I mean, it's marketing, advertising, it's a big chunk
Yep,
of what they do. So whether they go with me or Megan or someone else, I mean, they don't have to go with a girl, like they can go with a guy. I don't care, but just have somebody help you.
yep,
Um, so that someone that you trust, that there's accountability with, but that, you know, one of our clients will be driving to Kroger and it'll be, I don't know what time at night. And he'll be sitting in the parking lot. And I know he's sitting at his desk and I know he's doing something that he doesn't have to be the one doing. He just chooses to. But his wife and kids are at home waiting for him. So it just makes me put my lip out a little bit every time I see it. Um, and we're working on helping him. So hopefully he'll be able to have some of that off of his shoulders too. But yeah, I think it's critical. I mean, life or death to the family, in my opinion.
Right. And I agree
At least in it
because
flourishing. I mean, at least in it being optimal.
I think in it flourishing and in the healthy aspects. You've probably seen some of my recent stuff I put out for posting, but basically, in a nutshell, I'm saying if you want to do your children a service, heal yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with our businesses in that if you want to do your children a service, don't we always have to strike that balance, I think, as families, of providing for them and spending time with them, right? And so just because we're in the middle of the podcast here, just to let our listeners know, who's doing that for Anneliese when she's out there helping dads do this? Her husband, right? Your husband is helping you be able to have those moments with your children and vice versa, right? That's your family
Yep.
team.
Yep.
So just clarifying there for people.
Yep.
I'm curious, like we're kind of getting into this already, like what kind of impact your business has, like on the more intimate workings of the family unit. What happens on the other side when you help a dad not have so much on his plate, you're kind of already helping him spend more time with his family. Um, what do you think are some positive and negative outcomes of that? Or are there any negatives?
What do you mean by, yeah, clarify what you mean by positive and what you mean by negative.
Well, because some fathers work a lot because that's the way they know how to provide for their family. They
Mm-hmm.
actually don't know how to be present. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, you talked about being able to play, learning how to play.
Mm-hmm.
Some gentlemen actually don't know how to be present.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think I give them the opportunity to practice.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So the best example I can use of this, and it's there's a bunch, but this is one that just always sticks in my mind, is it's a moving client that we help. And Dustin always says that I take everything for him so personally on like whether it's working or not. And I was like, well, I do, because everything that he does, he literally is the checkbook, shall we say, for not only his, family, but his kids, his grandkids, and his great grandkids. He's the caretaker.
Wow.
And so whether his business works or doesn't, it's essential to 3 generations. And I take that very personally. So I sent him a text, and he always says, like, Annalise, if you're not hearing from me, it's a good thing, because I'm so busy that you're not getting a text message. I'm doing some kind of work. But I, reached out, and I think I asked like how his week went or whatever. I'd always just like to check in, because there's what my dad is showing me, but then there's what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we like to make sure that those are matching.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I have no idea. I'm in South Carolina playing with my grandkids. And I went, hallelujah, Jesus. Like, that's what I set out to do, because he trusts and knows that everything is taken care of, and he can go be grandpa, and he can go be dad. And that's what we live for. But I think, we give dads the choice
Mm-hmm.
to
I
practice. And if they don't know it, I mean, my husband, he's a natural play baby. I mean, you just talked to him, like
I
he's
did.
a goofball. He always has been, and he doesn't struggle with play. It comes very, very natural to him. Um, and so I learn a lot from him as well too. I mean, you should see us in Target. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, I'll have one kid in the cart, and him and Lily will have like Jedi swords, and Quinn and I will be chasing them down. But like, he inspires all of that in me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but dads can at least have that time and that um, vehicle, so to speak,
An opportunity.
to be able to practice it, right? Like, I mean, if you one of my really good friend's daughters just started, has her temps. And so you've got to get in those practice hours. If you don't even have the opportunity to practice, you can't get better at it, right? If I
Yep.
don't have the opportunity for my daughter to say, hey, mom, can you put your phone down? Like, oh, okay, like I failed there, but all right, like, let me like put it down and like, you know, get
Mm-hmm.
back to like being focused and present. Um, I mean, I think we're always working on just being more mentally present and grounded and all of those things that people would say. Um, but yeah, I think just giving them the space to figure that out is something if they choose to take it. And generally, the people that we're helping, their motivation is that. So
Mm-hmm.
um, the people we help are very aligned with our mission and wanting that for their own family. So that's generally what they do um, with the time. But just giving them that space.
Right. Um, do you think that you have you ever been in the position where you have to help an entrepreneur step over like the mindset paradigm of I have to be the breadwinner? Like they want to be home, but they feel that need to like I have to be doing all this stuff. Or is that something you run into?
Um, Generally, once they've found me, I think it's something that they want. And if not, I'm referring them to someone that's more, and I mean, we've talked about all kinds of things on this podcast that are going to be controversial. I'll say one. You know, generally, I believe women should counsel women and men should counsel men. Not that I won't get perspective from a man, um, but if they're learning that, I'm generally directing them to someone like a Jeff Wickersham or an Eric Rogel, which if you haven't had them on, you need to, and I can make those introductions. But I think it's easier for guys to hear that kind of stuff from another guy.
Yep.
I don't take it personally, but I've made connections with those resources to be able to provide that um for the dads. And I didn't foresee making those connections and providing that as part of my marketing vendor broker side of my business of, oh, and hey, here's a dad coach, or here's just a coach, right? But it's not weird to me because I've been coached in every area of my life. So you know you give me perspective on mom stuff and normalize it, and I go, oh, okay, like this isn't just like happening to me,
No,
right?
no, yeah, no, it's not.
But we
It's so
can
not.
feel that, right? We can feel like, oh, this is the only one that's happening to, like I'm the only one alone in this struggle. And um, so yeah, I that's not a particular um part of what I offer in my business, but I do offer those resources for them to talk to. I stay in
You
my
stay.
lane, but
You,
generally I find that the dads already have the motivation.
mhm.
Um,
If they're reaching out to you, it stands the reason to me that they would. Um, in your own business, how do you? And we've kind of touched upon it in a different way, but a little more blunt.
yeah.
How do you balance? How do you prioritize family over business? Like family first or business first, or do you find this is always kind of a dynamic, like a dynamic you're working out?
Um, I would say that
Sorry.
Craig Andrews, I was just on his podcast, Leaders and Legacies, which if you're about, some of the stuff Andrew and I are talking about is another good one to check out. Um, he said that I was the most family centric person he's ever met, including his wife. I was taken aback by that, and I was like, wow, like that's quite a title. Um, and I think,
But he's right. But he's right. You're no,
well,
really, he's right. You're a rarity in. I mean, that's why you're on my podcast. Just FYI,
yeah.
like
And I think like we were talking like early this morning is like it's easier for someone else to say that about me. It's not that I don't go, oh, okay, that's probably true, but I think it's how I wake up and breathe, right?
yep,
So
that's who you are.
um it if people don't like point it out sometimes, like you're just kind of in it.
Hmm.
Um I mean, I am very, very big on boundaries. I would say that is one thing, like and not the just a mom. I'm not diminishing it, but like again, like I'm a very task-oriented person. So I have to be like, Anneliese, you are a mom right now. Like turn the rest off. Right. Because the kids are watching, right? I
Yep,
mean, when
absolutely.
my kids wanted to get toy phones, I was like, ooh, that's not good. Um, because they learned that from somebody.
Yep.
Um, but like when my son and daughter a week apart had 104 and 105-degree fevers, you couldn't get a hold of me.
Yep.
Because I was there and I was there for my kids. When my husband needs something, like he's priority, like God, family, then business. Like we just have very, very clear priorities.
Hmm.
But am I perfect at it? And you asked about a dynamic. Is sometimes doing something in the business prioritizing my family? Sometimes it is. But I know that that is the reason behind why I'm doing it. Like Lily was like, Mom, like, because I, changed from like a sweatshirt to, she's like, Mom, why are you wearing that? And I'm like, oh, because I'm going to be on a video that people are going to be watching. What are you going to be talking about? And I said, how awesome you are. Oh, okay. Um, but like, I told her, like, hey, like, you can't call out during nap time if you need something. Mommy's going to be on a video. Now, granted, if it was like an absolute emergency, I know you'd hit pause and we'd be fine.
Yep.
But even with my kids, hey, like, mommy needs to do this right now, or daddy's doing work. So sometimes doing the work is prioritizing the family, but we're communicating what it is and why we're doing it. And hey, you want daddy home, like mommy's doing this to reach people so that, you know, daddy can be home all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, that good communication.
Yeah.
Your story of your daughter is making me kind of laugh because my kids know if I get on the blue jacket, I'm either teaching somebody, that's what they call it, teaching somebody, coaching somebody, or I'm doing
This is
something
my
work oriented.
podcast jacket. I've probably worn it on like 75%. It's like my uniform because it goes with my background. Yep.
It cracks me up. Yeah, I remember it from last time. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
she's
Yep.
wearing some jacket.
It- it- I like to not wear something that like crazily doesn't blend with my background, but
Oh, you're fine. You're totally fine. You can see I have art in my background.
there's blue. It matches.
Why that
And the
was an
curtains.
accident. That was a
See,
complete accident.
because I come from the marketing, I know a little bit about branding. So yeah, I'm seeing all the colors. Go ahead
You
though.
know, yeah, that was an accident. Mine was like, I got to be a little more professional. Um, so I'm curious because I love what you do, and we've gotten all sorts of information from you. But here's a question I haven't asked, haven't even
Okay.
touched on, and that is like, how do you see the leadership of your business working in small businesses in the future? Like how do
Ooh.
you see your business coming forward in that leadership role? Because I know, breathe. I'm
I love when
because
you ask me questions I don't know that are coming in. It's my favorite. But I can
but
tell you an
you're in
interesting
a
story.
leadership. But I'm going to argue that you're in a leadership role, okay? And so that's why I said
No, no,
breathe
no, I'm not
because
disagreeing with you. It just wasn't one of the questions I knew was coming. Um, so this is really interesting, and I think it goes back to, Craig saying something about me being the most family-centric person.
yeah, yep, that's
Um,
why I asked.
so I was talking with Liam Darmody. I don't know if you know him.
I don't know that name. I knew the others.
He's um he's a dad. He's a LinkedIn guru.
Mhm.
He probably wouldn't use that word, but um
Most of the gurus don't.
he he did he knows LinkedIn. So he did a post and it was talking about using Shield and analyzing your analytics. Yeah. Looking at your analytics. And so I reached out to him and I was like, hey, like tell me a little bit more about this because I'm all about metrics, right? And um I'm like, which version should I use? They had creator and they had influencer. And he was like, oh, you should definitely pick influencer, like without hesitation. And I was like, really? Like I would have called myself a creator, like, and I was looking at the number of impressions, or I was looking at how many followers I had. and he's like, Anneliese, you're posting multiple times a week. He goes, you know your way around it. But I didn't see myself that way until someone else called it out. And then I'll periodically get messages from someone, and I'm, not going to again name names. Um, but things that they've learned from me. Or, oh, like I really like this series that you do. And like people are watching and they are paying attention. And I mean, I'm a leader by nature and by personality. Like I watch my daughter, and this morning, so her mama got her this little chart where you can move things over after there's a checklist. Instead of her doing it, she was going around, Mom, did you make your bed? Mom, did you brush your teeth? And she was moving things over for stuff I had done. And I'm like, wait a minute, like who's the daughter and who's the mom here? So like, I mean, yeah, I can see where leadership is coming in. I think I would also answer it in that I'm communicating for people to go like, oh, this is actually even a possibility, right? I mean, people are for them to be home, for them to, not have to deal with marketing, for them to have that time,
No, but
for
I'm going to say that you're in the hot seat though
me.
already. Um, Meaning it's not coming. The question is geared towards my question really is geared toward what are you going to do with it? Because you're already in that role.
Yeah,
You're a parent leader, an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, and I see what you're doing. And the particular job you've chosen, like the particular work you do, is one of the hardest to do consistently, time after time after time. And you share your metrics with people. They're
yeah,
amazing. They're
yeah,
amazing. And you do that and you
yeah,
and you're a mom and you're like and you're telling stories about your daughter and your son and how you're basically sharing how you take that apart and live a healthy successful entrepreneurship life with your kids,
yeah,
with them learning from you. That is definitely leadership right there. Like
yeah,
even speaking up like you are for fathers and saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do with my business. And after speaking with Dustin, your husband, and having him on the podcast, I have a much clearer picture of like how the family does that, and
yeah,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
yeah.
So my question is kind of like, where are you going to go with this? Because you're in this,
Ah,
you're already in this, girlfriend. Like,
right.
what are you
Well, and
going to do
I
with
was
it?
agreeing with you. I was coming at it from another side. I just am using the platform to tell our story,
Mm-hmm.
to encourage others, um, to like you do for me to normalize certain things,
Yeah.
that they're not the only one going through it. When I comment, I'm trying to add some kind of empathy of like, I'm with you, I get you, or I just experienced that. Um, and I, I'm rarely at a loss of words, but it's humbling. Um, but it's why I post every day. I mean, there are some days that I don't feel like it. I'm sure we all have those, right? And I,
Yeah.
don't have a post and I've got to come up with something and I'm like, ah, but then I get a comment or I get a direct message from someone and like, man, like, I look for your stuff every day. It's such an encouragement. And so I do it for them. I don't, I might be different. We're like, yeah, like we're all gaining followers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we want our posts to like reach as many people as possible because we're sharing our heart and right. Like, but
Yeah.
from a business perspective too, like, right. I mean, there's all of that, but I really write it for the current people that I know are reading it every day. Kevin Logan said something yesterday where if you can write a post to one person, that there are hundreds to thousands of other people just like them that are going through the same thing. So I thought that was so powerful and such just a great perspective on writing. But I know who's my consistent people that are, commenting all the
Mm-hmm.
time are, and I'm like, okay, like what's going to encourage them? What's going to benefit them?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I hope I'm answering your question. I would have had a more well thought out answer, but I know you like to ask questions to catch
Uh,
people off guard, so you did.
on occasion. Well, and I think sometimes my perspective is different, and I get it because I've been in that seat. Um, but sometimes we don't realize the difference we make until someone
Mhm.
asks us the question that makes us realize, oh gosh, this is wow, I'm at the beginning of this, whatever this thing is, right? Or oh wow, I'm doing that because that's who I am. But when it's just who we are, we don't sometimes recognize what we're doing because it is just who we're doing.
Well,
Oh,
go ahead.
no. Go over there, please. My daughter.
It's all right.
Um,
So one
so
thing I will say just in answer to the question, I started posting 18 months ago because I had a 6-month-old and well, I guess Lily was a little under 3. And it was the only place I logically could think that I could reach the most people consistently, like kind of cast the widest net, right? And it's, we're a business to business, like we serve B2C, but we're B2B, right? And so I had no idea where it was going to go though. Like it's so funny. And you and I were talking about the pictures on my website, and I am going to do this post, but the picture that's initially on our website is from when Quinn was 6 months old. And we just had pictures that happened when he had just turned 2. And the story, if you just look at the 2 pictures that it tells, is amazing. Um, but you know, that I was going to, I have no idea how many followers I had when I started, and it was never really my goal. But that I was going to connect with this whole dad community and, you know, men and women that serve dads. And that I think the biggest things, my dad looks forward to the question I send him on Sunday night for the post that we write together on Monday. And Dustin will come in, okay, this is what I want to get out to the audience. And you met him, like he's an introvert, right? So on Fridays when he writes, because it's normally I'm copywriting what he says, or to be able to get the words out of someone like you or, another dad on a Wednesday post, like the platform, I think that's what means the most to me. But, or that he would like 18 months later, like want to get on a podcast. Like, I mean, it just, the evolution of it's not my favorite world, but like it's hilarious to me because it's when I started, I didn't have this vision of like, okay, and this is where I want to get to. Like, it just kind of took on a mind of its own by me being myself, which actually relaxes me because I can just keep being myself. Because I'm not on here. I am a leader, but I'm not trying to like I'm gonna lead. I'm just being myself and naturally leading. Is that
yeah, no, I think you're speaking into something that's actually really powerful. When we inspire people and lead from a place of just naturally being who we are, I think we often our voice is the strongest.
Mhm.
Because when someone asks us a question or catches us off guard, like your girl here likes to do on occasion, um, you have an answer that goes straight to the heart of whatever it is that matters to you. So this
Mhm.
kind of leads me to our last question, which
Yeah.
is like, what's the big goal and dream for you? Like, as the mama CEO, what's the goal? What's the big dream?
Oh, well, the one that's like right in front of us and it's so close I can taste it is we are about 2.5 months away from Dustin being home full time and being able to
Yay.
work in our business at home. That and my business coach Rob Sainer is always getting on me like, Anneliese, like think further. And I'm like, no, that's Dustin's role. I'm really good at like completing what the next most attainable task is. That's me. Um, and so that's number one. But being able to share that story, like there's so many people I know that are rooting for us. So they're like, it's like when they see us do it, it's like gonna be like the 4-minute mile.
Yeah,
Like, um, and so, I take that responsibility very seriously because I know that there's people that are watching and like, oh, is she just saying it's going to happen? Or is it actually going to happen? Like back in May when we were able to reduce his schedule down and people were like, oh, and then I could start talking about like that part of it because it is a process. It's not
yeah,
just something where you snap your fingers, not
yeah.
if you do it right and you do it solid. So then being able to show other dads, that it is possible. And they might not all want to be like work from their office at home, like our family dynamic. But we have had people like, I mean, we had one guy who went out of the country somewhere very warm, was gone from his business because we were handling it. Another one that went on a cruise. Like they've been able to have like family moments that they wouldn't have if things hadn't have been being handled by someone that they trusted. So that just expanding. Um, I know there's probably a couple books in me. Um, it's just, the time to like get it down on paper. Like I think what I'm excited about and why I'm focused so much on Dustin being home full time is like I've seen what came from reducing it partway. Because the stuff that is allowing it to come full wouldn't have happened if he hadn't have been able to have those Wednesday and Thursday mornings with our kids.
Mhm.
Um, so like when we're full and we can have that full schedule, like what can I take one of those days and start writing? Because I
What
mean,
more can you do? Yeah, yeah.
the book, like it already happened. It's in me, right? Like there's certain themes that are in my life. Um, so I just need to like get it out of my head, but like just having like I said, the space that we talked about creating for dads, like I need
Mhm.
that space created for me.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, like it's like finishing the first step, but then like I'm working on getting a newsletter out for dads. Um, and I don't know, Dustin and I might have a podcast. People keep telling him he needs to have a podcast. I think you told him to. But like all those things take time and they take space.
We
And
absolutely do.
we're people of excellence. And so we want to do it right and not just, half.
Halfway.
Um, yeah, so we're not those people. I mean, I know you're not doing anything 100%, but like once we start, like we're going to commit to it. It's not going to just be like an idea.
Hmm.
Um, so there's definite visions, but I mean, a big vision, I'm going to homeschool my kids. It's so cool watching my daughter like, hey mom, can we read this book? It's about the ABCs and we're practicing her letter sounds, right? And doing it to be able to be present and like, how does my daughter need to learn? What is she connecting with? What is she not connecting with? Um, and just to have that dichotomy go away and just to
Hmm.
have it like all be right. It's not going to be perfect, but that's my big vision for right now.
Hmm.
But absolutely to be able to help other dads do that and have more of that, more and more of progressively have more of that space.
I
So,
think I think one of the healthiest and strongest things we can do actually in our leadership role is to create that in our own family and to be that example, which is what I see you doing. And
yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna wrap us up here. But one of the things that comes to mind when I listen to you speak, and that I think applies beautifully to what I see you and Dustin creating with Never Miss a Moment and your family, is just this idea that discipline is the heart of love.
Mm,
What I hear you saying is that when you commit to something, you're committed and you lean in until you figure it out, whatever the
mm,
obstacle is, right? And your children are learning how to be disciplined because you're being that example. You're saying, okay, honey, this is mommy's work time. She
mhm,
knows you're getting your jacket on, right? She's going
mhm.
around with a little list, clicking off the things mama does, and it's just this thing, this really beautiful picture. But that's the phrase that comes to mind for me is, discipline is the heart of love. And you guys are this really beautiful example of that. And I want to thank you for your time today because I know it's
Yeah,
precious. Thank you for
yeah,
coming on.
yeah, you're welcome. Thanks
Is
again
there,
for the platform that you provide as well.
you're welcome. Are there any parting messages or questions before we close out?
If there are any dads that are listening to this or wives and you can think of your husbands or your friends' husbands that do own a business and you've heard them, mention in passing just their frustration on this topic. If you go to my website and you go to the Let's Connect page and send me a message, We do have a first time offer that allows people to experience us, just to kind of bridge that gap of trust. Something that we developed last year. And so if you mention, just put the word mamas along with your message, so I know that you came to me from here. I'd love to help out, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or DM me there, but just put mamas in it. I would love to be a part of helping more people.
Okay, and then for folks who are listening, right down below in the comments or in the links in the about of this video, you will find her website link as well as mine, and can reach out to her there. Again, thank you so much for coming on
You're
today.
welcome.
We'll see you next time.
All right.